Your thoughts on this phone call, another big diplomatic, if that's what it is, issue. The Biden administration, they're sending troops to tiny islands off the coast of China and all kinds of foolishness like that. The China is reminding them about their red lines. Joe Biden's on the phone with Xi Jinping again. There was a write out, and again, even in the Chinese write up, they said they mentioned about Taiwan and the importance of this being the reddest of red lines. Your thoughts on that phone call? What's that all about? And let me add this: at a time when they're doing just more and more aggravating provocations, he's on the phone with Xi Jinping about one other thing. Janet Yellen's going to China again, and so I think the U.S. has some real economic problems. And anyway, your thoughts on Biden Xi Jinping phone call?
American foreign policy is in a crisis at this point in time. The Biden doctrine, if you go back and take a look at all the publications that have come out in terms of national security strategy, defense strategy, all this, everything is predicated on two fundamental concepts. One, that we are a world in transition away from American hegemony towards a multipolar conflict, but that it's beyond this. This is about democracy versus autocracy. And we call out Russia and we call out China in this document as our principal adversaries. It's very stark in that. And the other one is that the sustainment of democracy hinges on the sustainment of the rules-based international order. That this is everything, that everything we do is premised on that. We continue to have the harsh democracy versus autocracy distinction in the way we articulate foreign policy. But it's interesting that increasingly Blinken and Jake Sullivan and other U.S. officials have come out and said that the rules-based international order is no longer sustainable, and that it's collapsing on its own volition, and as a result, in the vacuum that's being created by this, the autocracies are moving in to fill quicker than we can counter, and so they're trying to come up with something. And it's important to understand that context, because when you talk about what America's doing with Russia and Europe, I think everybody has to take, again, a step back and understand there was a point in time pre-Ukraine where the United States had made a decision that we were withdrawing our forces from the Middle East, but that we were not going to take them to Europe, that we are instead pivoting to the Pacific, that our big strategic focus would be to reassert American power and authority in the Pacific to counter China and to convince other nations like India, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, South Korea, Japan, that we're here to stay, that the Pacific is our ocean. And that was supposed to happen. A couple things happened. One, Europe went bad, and because there's a lot of people, I mean, and there's some, because we don't know how to divorce ourselves. We say we're going to pivot away from Europe. Meanwhile, the CIA is in there going, yeah, but we're still screwing around with Russia, baby. And we're like, oh, keep screwing around with Russia. That's okay, but just don't let it get out of hand. Boom, it's out of hand. So now, before we can even pivot to, and meanwhile, because America never waits until we're prepared for something, we open our damn mouths. Remember when the Chinese delegation went to Alaska early on and then sat down, the Chinese read Blinken and Sullivan the Riot Act, said, you can't talk to us that way. I don't know, who do you think you're talking to? This is China. We're not you. We won't put up with this stuff. And so we're trying to flex our muscles to intimidate them while we're trying to get our act together in the Pacific. And the Chinese went, get the hell out of here. You can't talk to us that way. And so we're floundering right now in the Pacific. And meanwhile, boom, Europe blows up. And so all the things that we thought were going to be able to flow to the Pacific are now bogged down. We have to change everything. And just so people understand, the U.S. military is in big trouble right now, huge trouble. U.S. Army, 64,000 recruit shortfall, meaning in order just to sustain the Army at manning levels that our order of battle says we have to have. We needed to recruit 64,000, or we needed to recruit a certain number of people. We were 64,000 short. So what did the Army have to do as a result of that? They had to cut 24,000 positions. Ladies and gentlemen, that's like a reinforced division. So we lost a division's worth of billets, meaning the Army no longer mans them. They don't exist. We don't plan on them existing. We shrunk. So we have this incredible shrinking Army. It's only going to get worse. Shrinking. So we have these reduced number of forces. Now we're starting to earmark them. Remember that planning thing I talked about where we plan about potential war? So we have a whole bunch of guys in the Pentagon planning for a war in the Pacific who are suddenly told, nope, plan for a war in Europe. Well, we're not. Guys, where are we going to get the forces? All these guys are earmarked the Pacific, not anymore, re-earmark them. But the problem is we send 100,000 guys to Europe. That's it. I mean, we can scrape up the barrel a little bit more, but then we got nothing for anything. The American military just isn't as capable as I think the American public thinks it is. They've been misled. They've been lied to. They've been told about technology. We're leading with technology. Turns out our technology's not that good. Our troops, there's just not enough of them. And the ones we have, they're not that trained anymore. And the equipment, we haven't been doing tank warfare in a long time. And so those tanks have been sitting around. They don't necessarily work the way they're supposed to work. We haven't done high sustainability air operations. So can we, the F-35, yeah, look good on paper, but in reality, when 60% of them can't respond to sorties because of maintenance issues, and if we start flying actual combat sorties, the ones that can fly are going to break very fast, and pretty soon not a single F-35 is going to be able to take off the ground, or the F-22, or any of our aircraft, because they are maintenance intensive machines. The reality is we got nothing. And so I think what's happening here is that Biden is in damage control mode. There's all of this talk about, the United States can't fight and win two wars at one time. And so, we can't fight and win one war at one time. That's the reality. But the Pentagon's like, if you want us to focus on China, we need to solve things. And another thing happened too. The Middle East blew up. It wasn't supposed to. We got out of the Middle East, and now we're back in the Middle East, and things are happening. I mean, we're waiting for the Iranian retaliation, and what's that going to happen? How's that going to play out? Is this going to become a regional war that's going to suck even more resources we don't have away from this? So the talk was trying to tone things down because the Chinese are not happy about the deployment of, I think it's only 300 American special forces, and only 50 of them are on that island that's off the coast. The rest of them are, spread out in different locations. And it's, the 50 guys doesn't change anything. They'll die on day one, just like everybody else. But that's the whole point. It's supposed to be a tripwire force. They're supposed to tell the Chinese, don't you dare attack Taiwan because we got 50 Americans here. And if you kill them, we're going to hold you accountable. And the Chinese can go, with what? With what? We're aware of the war games that you run every year and that you lose. You don't even come close to winning. And we're just getting stronger. We're launching more ships every day. You're getting weaker. Your aircraft carriers are overextended. You may have 12 on the books, but you can't put 12 in the sea at any one time. We're building our third, and we got more on the way. Pretty soon, we're going to surpass you in deployable aircraft carrier capability. We're going to have a larger blue water Navy than you do. And then, all fantasy of you supplying or supporting Taiwan is out. By the way, North Korea, who are our friends, not yours, just successfully test flew a intermediate ranged hypersonic missile with a hypersonic glide capability, which means it's a maneuvering warhead that can come in, you can't shoot it down, and it can hit anywhere from Alaska to Guam and all your bases here, and conventionally, by the way, so they don't have to and the North Koreans just put up a whole bunch of satellites that gives them the ability to update their target list every 24 hours. So now you're going to have to start moving your plate pieces around. That costs money that you don't have. See, the Chinese are very aware of the weaknesses of the United States. And so I think Biden was calling them up to assuage the Chinese on that. And I didn't see the readout. Did they talk about Iran? Because I thought that one of the items would have been to see what the Chinese can do about telling the Iranians not to overreact to this attack.